Even if he went far away, staying near a water source that was not contaminated by zombie flesh, it still didn't feel right. Can a normal person do such a thing? After 5 days, Chu-han and the others had been driving on the highway, speeding for 5 days. Fortunately, there was plenty of food on the truck, allowing them to run all the way without stopping to replenish supplies. At this time, they were already quite close to Shi City, and it wouldn't be long before they arrived. But Chu-han didn't immediately head towards Shi City. He took a few people off the highway and came to a place surrounded by wilderness. This was a straight road without the protection of a highway. After the apocalypse, this road became bumpy and difficult to walk on. Various obstacles would appear every 100 meters. The roadside weeds grew like vines. Completely detached from the word grass, they were tall and lush. G55 was driving fast in front. The chaotic obstacles were knocked away by Chu-han's foot on the accelerator, making a loud bang and directly creating a path. Chen Xiaoye was driving the train behind Chu-han, feeling nervous all the way. Boss, with this appearance, he looked like he was going to drive into a wall. The group hurried along, and finally, before the sun set, they drove the car to a wide building. It was empty around, as far as the eye could see. There was only this one building within the range of vision. They drove in, and a few zombies rushed out from the corner, being knocked by the tall and sturdy bodies. Their heads were broken and blood flowed, leaving behind a trail of black blood and rotten flesh. This was an abandoned factory, because of the apocalypse. Because of the zombies, this factory had been ravaged and desolate. The walls were mixed with the bloodstains of both zombies and humans, already dried up and turned black, unable to distinguish between each other. On the ground by the wall were scattered yellowed human bones. Several of them were broken. A few skulls still had hair on them, like balls, rolling to the side. After parking the car, the group cautiously got off. How strange, Luo Xiaoxiao frowned. Why are there so few zombies? You've become addicted to killing zombies, Chen Xiaoye sneered. Killing zombies before was a special case. Out here in the wilderness, how many zombies could there be? Chen Pangzi's words were correct. This factory wouldn't have many people when the apocalypse broke out, and it was in such a remote place, there shouldn't be any danger. Shang Judi reassured Luo Xiaoxiao, then looked at Chu-han. We came here for... Chu-han withdrew his gaze from the body of G55, in a calm tone. This is a smelting factory. I need to modify my weapon. Since my power talent was activated, this axe in my hand feels a bit light. I need a bigger and heavier weapon, with stronger killing power. A better weapon not only saves more time, but also resolves more crises. And Chu-han's gaze turned to the G55 again. Maybe this car can be further strengthened. Chu-han is so amazing, brother. Luo Xiaoxiao looked at him with admiration. Except for Chu-han, no one can swing this axe with one hand. Luo Xiaoxiao can't even push it. Where is Bai Yuna? The eyes of the Ninth Emperor searched around. How come she disappeared in the blink of an eye? Chu-han stared at the night training ground. There was no light inside the pitch-black gate. He had already gone in. It's really disorganized and undisciplined. Luo Xiaoxiao seized every opportunity to complain behind Bai Yuna. But no matter how dissatisfied he was, he had no other choice. In fact, it's already good enough that Bai Yuna can travel with them. This is partly because of the curiosity that this cold girl has towards Chu-han. Chu-han distributed the bullets in the soup. Gripping the iron axe in his hand, let's go in and take a look. Episode 92. After a few steps in the dark passage, there was no sound of footsteps. It seemed that this factory, like its shell, was an abandoned place. It was dead silent. Chu-han walked at the forefront with a flashlight in his hand. Shang Judi and Luo Xiaoxiao walked in the middle. Young Master Chen guarded the rear. The entire passage was quiet and silent. Only young Master Chen, due to nervousness and fear, breathed heavily and heavily, as if he had just finished running a marathon. The road under their feet was slippery. Under the illumination of the flashlight, they could see rotting flesh and black blood, scattered in different places. Occasionally, 1 or 2 zombies woke up from the ground, making terrifying howling sounds similar to ghosts. But before they could stand up, Chu-han smashed their heads with an axe, staining the ground with more black blood. This is nothing more than a hell on earth. The whole road was filled with such scenes. Mechanical footsteps, 1 or 2 zombies appeared one after another. The dim corridor seemed endless. The shaking flashlight showed scenes that were not much different, repeating constantly. Young Master Chen, walking at the back, suddenly swallowed his saliva, his heavy breathing indicating how frightened he was. As if in the next second, he would be scared unconscious by this terrifying environment. 2 more zombies appeared, and Chu-han smashed their heads with an axe at the same time, spraying black blood on the wall, forming a unique pattern. Repeating similar scenes made young Master Chen's breathing heavier and heavier. Sweat on his forehead kept dripping down, and the gun in his hand started to tremble. His eyes kept wandering around, and his heartbeat seemed to surpass the footsteps of several people. This passage seemed endless. They kept walking without knowing how long they had walked. Suddenly, Luo Xiaoxiao's crisp voice, like a bell, rang out. Chen Xiao's sudden voice scared him so much that he almost fell. Chen Xiao's voice was loud, and Chu Han and Shangju Emperor turned their heads at the same time. Chen Fatty, if you want to leave, just leave. Is there a need to be so scared like a stupid pig? Luo Xiaoxiao suddenly turned around and shouted at Chen Xiao. He even sprayed saliva at me. Luo Xiaoxiao's scolding made Chen Xiao's panicked mood calm down a bit. The mechanical silence of a few people just now was too scary. He thought he had entered some kind of infinite loop dimension. Looking ahead, there was an open door. They finally reached the end. Chen Xiao wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, I didn't spray saliva, it's sweat. Luo Xiaoxiao persisted. You clearly sprayed, I felt it. Saying that, the little girl wiped her own neck and extended a hand to Chen Xiao. Look at all this water, you're sweating like this. Sorry, maybe I did spray saliva. I didn't notice. Chen Xiao touched his head and suddenly stopped. His eyes widened suddenly. Why are you screaming? Luo Xiaoxiao shouted, but then his voice suddenly became louder. What's wrong? Shangju Emperor immediately walked forward, his voice panicked. Neither Chen Xiao nor Luo Xiaoxiao paid any attention to him and kept screaming in panic. The screams were loud as if they were going to burst their eardrums. What's going on? What's going on? Say something. Shangju Emperor was so anxious that he was about to collapse. Blood, blood. Chen Xiao's voice trembled. Where's the blood? The dim place made Shangju Emperor unable to see the situation clearly. He quickly turned around and said to Chu Han, who had been silently watching without any reaction, Chu Han, shine the flashlight. However, Chu Han didn't hear Shangju Emperor's words. Instead, he shone the flashlight towards the open door on the other side. I think you'd better leave this place and come behind me. Shangju Emperor was overwhelmed by the continuous screams, but when he looked up and saw Chu Han's gaze, his body trembled. A strong feeling of fear surged up. It was a pair of deep, oppressive black pupils reflecting an extreme sense of killing. He rarely saw Chu Han's eyes like this. What happened? What's going on? What happened? Chu Han slowly lowered the axe in his hand, and the cold light on the blade was sharp. He handed out the flashlight in his left hand, and his voice was calm but like the prelude to a storm. Don't turn around. Shangju Emperor's pupils suddenly contracted. He suddenly hugged Luo Xiaoxiao, who was about to be greatly frightened, in his arms. With a strong kick of his right leg, he kicked Mr. Chen's back with great force. The strength was so great that the nearly 200-pound Mr. Chen entered the door with just one kick. At the same time, Shang Judy's body rushed forward like a cannonball. He grabbed the flashlight that was shining on the opposite side, and in the next second, Chen Xiaoyu, Shang Judy, and Luo Xiaoxiao were already inside the door. The flashlight shone on the road they had just walked from, clearly illuminating it. Tick-tock, tick-tock, the sound of dripping echoed in the silent air. The flashlight's beam of light shone upwards, revealing several drops of blood falling one by one from a beam. It was a bloody red, human blood. The three people behind the door turned pale. At the same time, their gaze focused on Chu Han, who was standing in front of them. His back was still so strong, firmly holding the axe in his hand. Click-clack, the unique sound of zombie teeth clashing lightly sounded, sometimes from above, sometimes from afar, sometimes near, sometimes intermittent. It could be heard, but the beam above was still dripping with blood, forming a pool of blood on the ground below. Chu Han gently turned the axe in his hand, standing there quietly. The killing intent in his eyes was finally released in an instant. The furious aura caused every pore on his body to expand. The intensity of his life force reached its peak. Without any warning, the huge iron axe in his hand swung out suddenly. Liquid sprayed out, splattering the warm ground around Chu Han. Swish, 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 several sounds of breaking the air rang out around him. Then suddenly, it fell silent. A tall figure suddenly appeared just under 3 meters in front of Chu Han. It was a zombie wearing a loose, grey-blue work uniform. It seemed to be a worker from this smelting plant before. His left arm had been cut open by Chu Han's axe, and thick black blood was flowing down. Unlike ordinary zombies, the stench on this zombie was extremely faint, and there was no rotting flesh falling off the wound that Chu Han had opened. The grip on the axe in his hand tightened, and Chu Han's expression began to become ferocious. His gaze passed over the zombie's arm and stopped on its claws. It was a piece of torn cloth. In the 93rd episode, that cloth was white and thin. With Chu Han's sensory perception as a physical evolutionist, he had already identified it in the instant he fought with this zombie. The cloth still had the scent of Bai Yuna. It was torn from her body, so Bai Yuna disappeared. Tick-tock, tick-tock, the blood on the ceiling was still flowing. The zombie on the opposite side raised its head. That is a face scarier than an ordinary zombie. Apart from the pale pupils, there is a huge mouth that extends to the ears. 2 sharp fangs protrude from it. What is most frightening is that you can observe the muscular movement on the face of this zombie. This zombie has undergone a secondary mutation, and the power of the second-tier zombie, Chu Han, suddenly tightens. Second-tier zombies are completely different from first-tier zombies in terms of strength, speed, and even thinking. They have completely deviated from their original primitive state and moved towards a new direction. Zombies are genetically mutated and extreme life forms. They are not inanimate objects, but living beings that feed and have sensory and metabolic functions that normal organisms have. But some have degenerated to zero, while others have been enhanced to the extreme. Vision and feeding have developed completely towards two extremes. Zombies do not have vision, but their feeding ability has reached a terrifying level. Evolution is an inevitable process. They will not stay in the most initial stage. This kind of creature will continue to evolve like humans and any other life form. This world has changed. It is globally dark, causing the genes of all life forms to be completely recombined until the law of this phenomenon was confirmed after 5 years, and everything returned to the beginning. Returning to the original nature, starting a new round of selection. The weak are eliminated, and the strong survive. The second-tier zombie on the opposite side made a sound of teeth grinding and collided. A tongue much longer than an ordinary zombie extended from its big mouth. Similarly, this tongue began to have muscle tissue, strength, and flexibility. In the liquid flowing down from it, there was a trace of blood that was extremely red. The long snake was retracted, and Chuhan clearly saw the throat of this zombie twitch, swallowing the blood on its tongue back. The taste was very delicious, making the pale pupils of the zombie on the opposite side, which were as white as light bulbs, squint. Zombie blood is always black, so whose crimson blood is this? His gaze once again swept over this zombie, and the white corner of the clothing hooked on its claws. Chuhan's killing intent suddenly erupted. "What did you eat?" he roared. Chuhan's voice was loud and filled with anger, spreading far in this passage, and even several loud echoes could be heard. Luo Xiaoxiao and Master Chen behind him were both startled. When their gaze touched the snowy white clothing corner, their bodies trembled suddenly. Bai Yuna, that terrifying girl, was eaten. Shang Judy suddenly covered her mouth to prevent herself from screaming out of fright. Luo Xiaoxiao's face turned pale. He stretched out his hand in horror. His originally snow-white little hand was covered in blood. The liquid just now wasn't Master Chen's saliva, but the blood of Bai Yuna that had fallen from the ceiling onto his neck. This was Bai Yuna's blood. How could this be? He was so powerful, so abnormal. How could this happen? How is this possible? He lifted his head. Luo Xiaoxiao looked at the zombie blocked by Chuhan outside the door. With his extraordinary observation skills, he could see the difference in this zombie at a glance. It was even stronger than Bai Yuna. Will they die here? A thunderous roar came from the mouth of this second-level zombie. Swish, 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 the sound of the wind suddenly rang out. The zombies on the opposite side had disappeared, but Chuhan could feel that it was approaching him at an extreme speed. The cold light on the iron axe flashed, and the axe blade swung at an extreme angle. Chop! A collision sound suddenly rang out, followed by the friction of something extremely hard, creating a dazzling spark on the axe surface. It was the claws of this second-level zombie, which were very hard and could easily penetrate the wall. This time, Chuhan was lying on his abdomen with both arms. A muffled grunt came from his throat. This zombie was very strong, with extreme speed, and even had hard claws and teeth. Even with accuracy, he couldn't guarantee a hit, because his physical fitness and reaction nerves couldn't keep up with the speed of this zombie. In a situation without any geographical advantage, a first-level evolver surrounded by 20 first-level zombies could break through and escape. Facing one by one lone first-level zombie, he could kill hundreds in a row. And with first-level physical fitness, and the simultaneous activation of precision and strength talents, Chuhan could face 100 first-level zombies that were continuously coming. One after another, first-level zombies rushed up, and the current data for consecutive kills was 800. But now, he was evenly matched with the second-level zombie in front of him. It can be seen how terrifying second-level zombies are, completely different from the sluggishness of first-level zombies. Everything about the second-level zombies has been doubled and innovated, and the continuously growing data makes these walking corpses dominate the apocalypse, posing a long-term threat to human survival. Until Chuhan was reborn, they were still the most dangerous creatures on Earth. Because of the breakthrough of limits, because of genetic changes, they would become unprecedentedly powerful, and the limits of their power would be fully utilized. Chuhan swung both arms, and there was a loud friction sound. Several deep and shallow scratches appeared on the surface of the iron axe behind him. Swish, the zombie took a few steps back. It seemed to have realized Chuhan's uniqueness as well. The deep white eyeballs without pupils revealed a barely visible doubt. Then he pounced again, this time faster, stronger, like a bullet shooting out. The sharp claws sunk inward, gleaming with dangerous cold light. All power was lost. The two extended claws were very close to Chuhan's cheek. Chuhan could even feel the sharpness, as if it was about to pierce his eyes. Right now, Chuhan's mind was tense. His body strangely leaned back, As he moved his body away from those claws, his arms suddenly exerted force. His arms swung forcefully. The iron axe sliced upward. He gave up a more powerful strike and chose a different angle. His focus reached its peak accuracy. His talent maximized. A rapid friction sound. The iron axe inserted between the arms of this second-level zombie. With extreme speed and strength, it chopped towards its chin. Then a thunderous roar erupted from the zombie's mouth. The blade of the iron axe inserted into its jawbone. Chuhan did not relax his vigilance. The bones of a second-level zombie were not as soft as a first-level zombie's, easy to break. The bones of a second-level evolved zombie were harder than ordinary humans. That blow just now couldn't kill it. Chapter 94. A thunderous roar exploded from the mouth of the second-level zombie in front of him. Chuhan, at close range, could even smell the beastly breath in its mouth, and the intense anger emanating from the zombie's body. Zhang Judidi behind the door, Luo Xiaoxiao and young Master Chen all raised their guns, aiming the barrels as best as they could at the zombie, but their speed was not as fast as Chuhan's. Chuhan almost used up all his strength and speed, suddenly straightening his arched back, then his body leaned to the side, just barely avoiding the still unretracted claws. But at the same time, the iron axe twisted and lifted, chopping down from above. The whole process was extremely fast. Completed in less than a second, Chuhan's speed was fast. The speed of the zombie across from him was also fast. He had already. At the same time Chuhan made this series of movements, quickly retreated backwards, but Chuhan's seamless action just now still brought him a second injury. The blade of the iron axe directly sliced from his forehead, opening a gash, still not enough to cause death, but it made him howl and bleed non-stop. He let out another loud cry, pushing quickly and urgently, a trace of a fierce expression that only humans would have appeared on his face. Chuhan's third move, however, suddenly and without warning, a dagger flew out, swiftly tracing a beautiful trajectory in the air, accurately and without error, aiming at the zombie. The already cracked forehead a loud cracking sound. The dagger penetrated the zombie's brain. Black blood flowed down, dyeing his deep white pupils black. The dagger directly destroyed his entire brain tissue. The steel-made dagger handle was exposed, accompanied by the fallen second-level zombie, making a loud sound of cracking. No matter the level of the zombie, destroying the brain is the only way to kill them. Battle is Chuhan's instinct. He never took off the dagger on his arm, but today, this dagger that has always been tied to his right hand, once again played an ultimate role. The atmosphere relaxed in an instant. Chuhan let out a heavy breath. Although the battle just now was quick, but his forehead was already covered in sweat. It was no easier than killing hundreds of first-level zombies. The highly tense nerves were stretched to the maximum, as light carelessness could result in being killed. The sound of military boots on the ground echoed steadily. Chuhan stepped forward, forcefully pulled out the dagger from the zombie's forehead. The brain marrow inside burst out as more fountain-like black liquid gushed out with Ute immediately putting the dagger back into its sheath. Chuhan twisted the back of the second-level zombie's head in front of him. And then, with a splashing sound, the dagger accurately plunged into it. The technique was precise to the extreme. Apart from Chuhan's inherent precision ability, it was more of a familiar feeling he had from this action. A black, slightly transparent, crystal-like crystal was taken out from the back of the zombie's head by Chuhan, and quickly put it into his pocket. Chen Xiaoye, Luo Xiaoxiao, and the ninth brother, the little monk, still maintained their gun-raising posture. They hadn't had time to shoot yet. Chuhan had already finished fighting the zombie. A stunned expression appeared on the faces of the three of them collectively, leaving them completely stunned in place. They couldn't react for a long time. Chuhan's consecutive 3 attacks, fast and accurate, smooth movements like flowing clouds and running water, as if trained countless times, showing precision, repeatedly seizing the zombie's reaction gap, giving the strongest and most powerful killing force. This is the instinct of battle. Is it innate? Otherwise, how to explain this sense of disharmony? Chuhan is only 20 years old. He is clearly just a college student, and the zombie lying dead on the ground, anyone would be instantly disemboweled by him, without even having time to react. But Chuhan did it in an instant. That kind of quick resolution, leaving no room for the viewers to think, not to mention such exquisite skills. Chuhan achieved it effortlessly. He is either quick in reflexes or quick in thinking. The three people were puzzled and couldn't understand. Chuhan put the dagger back into its sheath and concealed the black crystal as if nothing had happened. He carried an iron axe and walked in front of the three people. "Go find Bai Yuner first," he said. The name Bai Yuner instantly brought the three people's thoughts back. Zhang Judi suddenly woke up and, after looking at Chuhan in disbelief, nodded heavily. Bai Yuner's life and death were uncertain. They had to speed up. Young Master Chen took on the responsibility of covering the rear and carefully looked around as they walked. He couldn't fall behind because their boss was so powerful. The system's voice suddenly sounded abrupt. The loyalty level dropped to 90%. The excitement was synthesized into shadows, unusually cold. But to Chuhan, it sounded so gentle and wonderful for the first time. He lowered his head and looked at Luo Xiaoxiao, who was walking beside him. The little girl's shiny big eyes were full of admiration for him. Good job, finally reached 90%, he thought. Once the loyalty level reached 90%, it would be locked and never decrease again. This little girl was finally completely won over by him. Immediately after, Chu-Han checked his points. Soon, his mouth twitched and he cursed in his heart. This stingy system only gave him 2 points for killing a 2-stage zombie, which was equivalent to 100 ordinary zombies in terms of combat power. He had to complain because it was unreasonable. The inside of the smelting plant was dim. Chu-Han walked with a cold face, solving all the first-stage zombies encountered along the way in the most brutal way. Black blood splattered all the way, and his behavior was extremely violent. Chu-Han's dissatisfaction was obvious, making the 3 people behind him dare not say a word. The 4 of them hadn't gone far when a continuous sound of overlapping explosions suddenly rang out. The zombies or humans, the 4 immediately increased their speed. After running for a while, a human corpse suddenly appeared in front of them. Only half of the body remained. From the still liquid blood, it seemed that this person had not been dead for long. The face and skin were completely unrecognizable due to being gnawed on. The white coat was tattered, covered in black blood and rotten flesh. On the opposite side, several zombies that smelled the scent were rushing over, their hungry appearance wanting to swallow this half-eaten corpse in one bite. Except for Chu-Han, the other 3 people's faces turned pale when they saw the corpse. Shang Judy's body shook, and the fat on young Master Chen's face trembled incessantly. Luo Xiaoxiao buried her entire face in Chu-Han's arms, too afraid to lift her head. Because next to this half of a body, there was a cluster of black long hair scattered. This body was that of a woman, with parts of her snow-white skin in the 95th episode that had not been bitten, indicating that the owner of this remains was young. The young woman with long hair wearing white clothes, Bai Baiyun. Chen Xiao's voice trembled in fear as he stared tightly at the half of the body on the ground. Is this Baiyun? The same thought arose in Luo Xiaoxiao and Monk Judy's hearts. The clothes, the long hair, the young woman, everything gradually overlapped with Baiyun. She was dead. The impact sound in front resounded once again, intense and accompanied by clanging noises. The sound of something falling to the ground together. Because of the dim environment, the 4 people couldn't see clearly what was happening in front. Chu-Han narrowed his eyes and quickly dealt with several first-stage zombies that wanted to pounce on him. Then, he swiftly rushed forward. The 3 people behind seemed unable to hear the sound in front. They stared blankly at the half of the fresh corpse on the ground, standing there motionless. Panic, sadness, and despair completely filled their hearts. It felt as if the sky was about to collapse. The world was crumbling. There was no end. No hope. Although Baiyun didn't fit in and hardly communicated with them, they had been traveling together for many days. They fought side by side, killed zombies together, ate instant noodles together. Even Luo Xiaoxiao and Monk Judy had known Baiyun for many years. This sudden change made it hard for them to believe. How could he be dead? How could he possibly die? Chu-Han didn't wait for them. He had already crossed the obstacle in front and arrived where the sound came from. It was a large workshop, with tall machinery obstructing the view. Many steel bars were scattered on the ground, each about 2 meters long. They were scattered as if they had been thrown down from somewhere all at once, colliding with each other, and making loud and crisp sounds. Chu-Han looked up at the top, which was empty. Then his gaze swept around. Apart from the steel bars on the ground that kept colliding, there was no sound. Something was wrong. There were still many zombies on the road outside, although not in large numbers. But the zombies' unique howling had never stopped. However, in such a large space, not a single zombie could be seen. Ordinary zombies were not known for being clean. Their noses were sensitive, and they would immediately come over when they smelled human scent. The sound of the wind entered Chu-Han's ears, and his mind tightened again. He stood still and tried his best. The axe in his hand was held tightly. Suddenly, a fierce collision sound erupted to the extreme. The interval between the bang-bang sounds was at its limit. People with poor hearing might even think that there was no gap in between. The source of the sound was not far in front of Chu-Han. It was an area blocked by tall machinery. Chu-Han took a step and ran forward. The iron axe in his hand was already raised high, ready at any moment. Suddenly, a graceful figure swiftly emerged from the side aisle, moving at a fast speed without making any sound of footsteps. Her flowing black hair was slightly tangled at the corner of her red lips. Her snow-white dress was somewhat torn, as if it had been forcefully ripped apart and shortened, revealing her thighs that barely covered her buttocks. Her cold and enchanting eyes carried an extreme sense of cruelty, but when she saw Chu-Han, her temperature suddenly warmed up, revealing a hint of elusive tenderness. Baiyun's pupils contracted when she saw Chu-Han, but his speed did not decrease. He took a step forward and raised the iron axe high, giving it all his strength to strike down. Hot liquid sprayed out, landing on Chu-Han's cheeks and neck, as well as on Baiyun's dress, which coincidentally passed by Chu-Han. A huge shadow suddenly retreated, without enough time to see his face, leaving only a trail of black zombie blood. At this time, Bayuna had already quickly turned her head, her slender legs spinning to change direction, her long hair flying and her dress swaying, light and graceful like a dancing butterfly. With a swoosh, the 2-meter-long steel rod in her hand brought a gust of wind, but she didn't even spare a glance at Chu-Han. She had already rushed towards the escaping zombie. Chu-Han, who had also rushed up, didn't spare a single glance at Bayuna either. They were chasing after a second-order zombie. Chu-Han's nerves were tight. He didn't expect that there would be another second-order zombie here, and judging from the speed of the escaping zombie, it was stronger than the one he had dealt with in the tunnel. These beasts were evolving really fast. A few strands of black hair floated on Chu-Han's cheek, making him frown uncontrollably. He glanced at Bai-Nue, who was running swiftly beside him. The explosive power on the girl made him feel amazed. Most importantly, as a first-order physical evolutionist, he couldn't sense any strong aura from Bai-Nue. It wasn't because she was stronger than him, but because this girl was actually not a first-order evolutionist. Bai-Nue was an ordinary person. An ordinary person's physique could actually confront so many zombies at once. Was this some kind of joke? Just passed by Chu-Han, that kind of extreme reaction speed. Even Chu-Han was surprised for a moment. He treated Bai-Nue as a first-level evolver. Only then did he confidently make that move. Because if someone's reflexes are not good, they might not have time to react and get injured by mistake. But Bai-Nue instantly understood Chu-Han's motive. Without hesitation, she swiftly moved to Chu-Han's side, allowing Chu-Han to freely attack the enemy. Damn it! Chu-Han almost cursed. No wonder this woman can reach the peak in the future. The physique of an ordinary person is already so powerful, her innate conditions are also too good. Moreover, could this kind of combat instinct really be innate? She's only 17 years old. At this moment, Bai-Nue and Chu-Han's movements are exactly the same. Their footsteps are almost synchronized. Both are swiftly and silently sprinting. Two figures, one tall and one short, one strong and one thin, one black and one white, simultaneously stop the two gusts of wind caused by their bodies also disappear at the same time. This is a den Chu-Han and Bai-Nue stopped at a narrow corner. The tall second-level zombies stood in front of them, back against the wall, pale pupils, no longer like ordinary zombies with mucus, but covered with a layer of blurry film. It bared its teeth and claws, the wound on its shoulders still oozing black blood, the muscles on its body bulging ready to attack. Chu-Han bursts forward, swinging his arms. Their on-axe that flew through the air is already displayed. A 2-meter steel rod in Bai-Yune's hand. It stirs up a gust of wind. With a light figure, she follows closely behind Chu-Han. Their gazes are fixed on the zombie in front of them, without looking at each other. Between the two of them, there seems to be an extreme tacit understanding. No communication throughout the process. Episode 96. The second-level zombie goes into a rage, and pounces on Chu-Han, who caused it to bleed. Its sharp claws extend straight out. Its terrifying mouth opens to the extreme, revealing fangs that seem capable of biting through walls. Chu-Han doesn't retreat, but advances. The iron axe in his hand clashes head-on. The axe blade cuts through the air, creating a strong gust of wind. The zombie's claws collide with Chu-Han's axe blade. The sparks shine so brightly that it hurts the eyes. At this moment, Chu-Han is extremely envious of the visual weakening of these zombies. The iron axe in his hand is being pressed down harder and harder by the tremendous force. Sweat drips from Chu-Han's forehead again. Suddenly, the mouth of the zombie in front of him suddenly opens wide. Ah! The zombie wearing headphones lets out a strange scream. Its mouth opens to the extreme. The blood-scented dental bed suddenly bites down on Chu-Han's head. Oh no! Chu-Han is startled. He tries to move his body backward, but the iron axe in his hand, but he was tightly held by the zombie in front of him, unable to move even a bit. He could even hear the cracking sound of the axe handle about to break. Either throw away the axe, or be bitten by the zombie. Just as the situation was critical, a white figure suddenly approached from behind. A 2-meter-long steel rod brushed against Chu-Han's ear and forcefully stabbed into the mouth of the second-level zombie. The force was so great that the zombie screamed in pain, and the black snake was instantly crushed. Black blood sprayed onto Chu-Han's face, completely stopping the zombie's biting action. The zombie opposite became enraged. He tilted his head and lifted the steel rod that was inserted straight up. With a loud clang, he angrily threw it on the ground. Bai-Nue, who was holding the other end of the steel rod, couldn't withstand such a strong force. With his extremely light weight, he was instantly thrown into the air. The white dress fluttered along with his black hair. If Chu-Han looked up at this moment, he could easily see through Bai-Nue. However, he didn't have time to think about these trivial matters at all. Feeling the iron axe in his hand tilting, he instinctively pulled it out without hesitation. At the same time, he swung the axe blade horizontally from left to right with the fastest speed, creating a loud bang. The zombie opposite was not slow. Its two claws reached out and blocked once again, resulting in a clash of strength. This dead end was very narrow, and the two of them couldn't fully exert their strength fighting side by side. There was no advantage of flanking attacks in the blind spots. Chu-han almost hit the nearby wall several times during his recovery. At this moment, with a snap, he suddenly felt a heavy sensation on his neck, a very soft and warm touch that appeared on the back of his neck. Immediately after, he saw the pair of shoes in front of his chest. When Bai Nue landed from the air, she actually sat on his shoulder. Did he know how he looked right now? There was no time to think about it. Chu-han suddenly exerted force with both arms, trying to completely block the second-level zombie that was attacking Bai Yuna. The iron axe was already at its limit, and the steel handle made of iron had started to bend. The huge axe blade seemed like it could split open at any moment. In the gap between Chu-han and the zombie, Bai Yuna, sitting on his shoulder, made another move. His slender and fair arms suddenly reached out and held Chu-han's chin, then his body lightly flipped backward, hanging upside down in Chu-han's arms. Then, with a strong force from his hands, he suddenly buried Chu-han's face in his clothes. Chu-han was so shocked that he almost dropped the axe. What was this woman trying to do? He couldn't see anything. However, soon after, Bai Yuna's legs suddenly kicked backwards with force. Bang bang, two loud noises. He was wearing a pair of high-heeled boots. This was something that Chu-han had never understood before. How could this woman run so fast while wearing such pointed heels? And her footsteps were silent. But after hearing those two cracking noises just now, he immediately understood. These shoes were Bai Yuna's weapon. At this moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps came. Young Master Chen, who had just arrived, as well as Luo Xiaoxiao and Monk Judy, happened to see the scene of the two of them hugging each other. The explosive posture made young Master Chen and Luo Xiaoxiao's mouths open in surprise. No way, these two people. Bai Yuna's body had already fallen down smoothly and stood in front of Chu-han with her back facing him. Her gaze became bright again. Just as Chu-han raised his eyes, he heard a loud scream from the zombie across from him. Its deep white eyes were filled with black blood. Just now, Bai Yuna actually pierced its eyes with her heel. Ignoring this strange attack method, this girl's leg strength is really strong. Second-level zombies are different from first-level zombies. They are 100 times stronger than ordinary zombies, but evolution has given them the ability to feel pain again. Feeling pain would make them instinctively retract their strength. Just like the one in front of them, it tightly gripped its claw holding the iron axe, and suddenly retracted it, covering its own eyes. It kept screaming. In this instant, Chu-han's eyes suddenly sharpened. Now is the time. The iron axe swung forcefully with a strong gust of wind, aiming straight at the zombie's head. Bai Yuna, who was standing in front of Chu-han, was within the range that the iron axe could reach. There was no time for Chu-han to remind her to dodge, but from beginning to end, Bai Yuna, who had not communicated with Chu-han at all, seemed to have eyes behind her back. Her body suddenly lowered, her arms holding onto one of Chu-han's legs, and she slid backwards in one smooth motion. The whole process was fast and direct. She didn't care at all. Just now, she brushed against a certain part of Chu-han's body. At the same time, there was a loud bang. The heavy iron axe and the zombie's head collided with each other, sending both of its eyeballs flying out. They hit the wall with a splat. At the same time, black blood sprayed out from its ear. Its whole head was split in half. The huge body fell to the ground. At this moment, Chu-han finally had a chance to observe this second-level zombie. It was even taller than the previous one, and its speed and strength were even stronger. It was a fully evolved second-level zombie. Turning his head, he glanced at Bai Yuna, who was standing behind him without saying a word. The girl's gaze still had no emotions, as if she were a machine, but Chu-han would never forget her direct and unreserved actions just now. His gaze lowered. Maybe it's because of the intense movements just now that Bai Yuna's dress is a bit messy. Turning around, Chu Hanyang is observing the zombie, but in fact, he seizes the opportunity to extract the black crystal from the back of the zombie's brain. This thing is not found on a first-level zombie. Feeling the increase of 2 points in the recycling system, Chu-han turns around extremely unhappy and looks at Chen Xiaoye and others. After all that effort, only 2 points were earned. Sorry to disturb you. Awkwardly, Luo Xiaoxiao's mischievous voice sounded. He smiled and stepped back. You guys are really great, especially Chu-han. Please continue. Chen Xiaoye also had an expression as if he saw something he shouldn't have seen. Episode 97. A cough of embarrassment sounded, and Chen Xiaoye and Luo Xiaoxiao looked around. However, their peripheral vision occasionally glanced over here. Bai Yuna with disheveled clothes, Chu-han bowing his head in silence. There seems to be something wrong, no matter how you look at it. Not to mention the ambiguous posture they just had. Did they touch? Or even kiss? Chu-han is counting his points with his head down, showing no reaction to the others. The 2 crystals in his hand are shining in his pocket. A second-level zombie has too few points, and it's not cost-effective to spend so much effort on it. Seeing Chu-han not speaking, a strange atmosphere suddenly spread among the 5 people. Bai Yuna seemed to have no emotions at all and showed no reaction. Luo Xiaoxiao and Chen Xiaoye exchanged a knowing glance, with a strong sense of gossip in their eyes. What's wrong with this zombie? And who is the corpse we saw outside? It hasn't been dead for long. Shang Judi is the only one who can speak properly. After putting aside his worries about Bai Yuna, he noticed that something was wrong. Not only the body that looks like Bai Yuna, but also the zombie on the aisle before, and the one lying on the ground now, all required Chu Han to exert so much effort to kill. This is obviously not right. Chu Han touches the two crystals in his hand and suddenly looks up with a mysterious gaze, turning his eyes on the three women and one man. Except for Bai Yun, the three people outside felt a chill. Chen Xiaoye and Luo Xiaoxiao both trembled, not paying attention to Shang Judi's words due to their gossiping thoughts. The two of them were thinking about the same thing, and it was all related to Chu Han. It must be very unpleasant to be caught in the act like this. Big brother, Chen Xiaoye's voice trembled. Why are you looking at me like that? I know I'm wrong. I didn't see anything. Stupid. Luo Xiaoxiao immediately scolded and then desperately acted cute towards Chu Han. Brother Chu Han is amazing. He easily dealt with this big guy in just a few moves. So impressive. Emperor Shangji's mouth twitched after glancing at Bai Yuna. He spoke again. Bai Yuna, have you encountered any living people before? And is this zombie a problem? Bai Yuna did not answer, her eyes fixed on Chu Han's hand in his pocket. Emperor Shangji, who was being ignored by everyone, suddenly felt a surge of anger. The situation is so urgent, what are these people thinking? Bai Yuna even dared to expose it. Chu Han didn't notice the situation around him. His gaze was fixed on young Master Chen as he looked him up and down several times. Boss. Young Master Chen suddenly hugged Chu Han's thigh and said, Boss, I didn't do anything. Chu Han asked in his mind, without hesitation, return to the system. Can this crystal stimulate abilities? The black crystal, 5 points per crystal, 2 crystals can be recovered and can activate abilities. The system's voice was cold. Can recover 5 points. Chu Han was stunned. No wonder he said that the points of the zombies were so few. It turns out they are here. If I use it, can I activate abilities? Chu Han asked. Host is a non-ability physique. The system's voice was cold. Chu Han cursed and continued with a black face. What is the chance of young Master Chen activating abilities now? Chu Han had thought about this question before. In this life, young Master Chen's shooting ability was weak. No matter how hard he practiced, he could never reach the peak state of being the 20th strongest in the world. So Chu Han speculated that young Master Chen might have some kind of ability. Abilities are a term used in the post-apocalyptic world several years later. In fact, at the beginning, they were called enhancements. Humans were also divided into 2 branches, enhancers and evolvers. Both of them have the same level. This is the genetic breakthrough of the human race. The definition of enhancers is simple. It is the extreme breakthrough of a certain ability. This breakthrough is extreme. The common ones are visual, auditory, olfactory, and other 5 senses, or more special ones, such as intelligence metabolism, and there are many types. Some even have weird enhancements like nail growth. Once this enhancement reaches its limit, it can be called an ability at a terrifying level. Evolvers, on the other hand, are a gentler way. They are not as powerful as enhancers in the early stages, because they don't suddenly give a person a limit ability in one aspect. Evolvers are a physical enhancement, a breakthrough in various indicators. Most evolvers are weaker than enhancers, but if an evolver reaches a certain level of evolution and reaches a certain level, the power they can unleash is terrifying.